Hey, congratulations on booking in your financial coaching call. Really valuable call. So make sure you show up to it. Melissa's going to be able to go over your goals, why you wanted to get to those goals, what's holding you back. Plus, she's going to give you some tasks to go and do to progress your money journey. Okay, so definitely make sure you show up to that call. All right. So before you do that, I would love to show you this as a bit of a homework task before you get on the call. Okay, something that will help frame where you're going to go in your financial journey. So let me just go straight into it for you, okay? I don't want to use up much of your time, but I really want you to watch this. So watch this to the end before you jump on that call with Melissa, all right? So here's the thing about money and finances. Here's what we definitely know, okay? We definitely know that you're in a position now. You're currently where you are. Forget about the past. You are currently now, and you're looking to make changes, okay? What we do know is that you will make changes and you'll end up somewhere in the future, okay, as your future self. That much we can be sure of 100%, okay? But what will your future money situation look like? Okay. For a lot of people, they've got probably between 20 years and 30 years to go from where they are now to their new future self. Okay. That's the window of opportunity. All right. So there are four outcomes that may transpire based on what you do now. Okay. The first outcome is called an ideal outcome. And it's an ideal outcome because that would be ideal, your ultimate outcome. Okay. And so that's a really best case scenario. So to have an ideal outcome, most people need about $2 million minimum, okay, to have an ideal retirement, financial security, safety, and freedom. Okay, that's an ideal outcome. Then the second outcome is really what's called an okay outcome. Okay, it's not ideal, but it's okay. So how much do you think you would need to get to an okay outcome? About $1 million. Okay, it's not ideal, but it's okay. All right. Now, the third outcome is what we call a poor outcome. Okay. Now, a poor outcome is usually when you've got probably around about $500,000. All right. When you finish working in that 20 to 30 year time slot, you get to the end of it and you've got maybe $500,000. That's a poor outcome. Okay. Then we've got the fourth outcome, and this is called crisis. And that's not a good place to be. Crisis. That's where you've got less than $500,000 to retire on. And people who are in crisis, they're really dependent on the government to live some sort of life after they finish work. So for the last, say, 15 or 20 years of their life, they're at the whims of other people. They're dependent on pretty well the government and other people to live their life. And of course, when they're in crisis, they can't make any choices. Okay. So they're the four key outcomes that will happen for you over the next 20 to 30 years, right? Because we know that at some point it's going to happen. So people who are heading into crisis, they're actually doing that because they're in drift. Okay, they're just drifting along. All right, and that's what kind of causes them to fall into crisis. Okay, the same sort of thing happens. When they're going for a poor outcome, they're still in drift, just not as drastic. Okay, the drift isn't as drastic. All right, and drift always heads downwards. Okay, whereas those who have some sort of okay outcome, or certainly an ideal outcome, the difference between those people who have ideal or okay outcomes and those who are having poor or in crisis outcomes is they make decisions. So the difference between ideal and crisis is decisions versus drift. Okay. So you can see here that there's four potential outcomes for you based on whether you're making decisions or whether you're in drift. Okay. You'll see here too, it's quite easy to fall into a poor outcome from an okay outcome if you fall into drift, okay, and you don't make any decisions. But you'll see here, there's probably a section, and it's probably the next 3 to 5 years where the lines are quite close together, okay? Whether you're in an ideal, okay, poor or crisis outcome, for the next few years, you're not going to really notice a difference. But after, say, 5 years or so, you see how the lines here start getting further apart? It means it's more difficult to change your outcome the longer you wait. Okay. So you can see here, if you've got a poor outcome in, say, 20 years' time, it's a big jump to an ideal outcome, very big jump. In fact, it's largely impossible. Okay. People who are in poor outcomes or crisis, by the time they discover it, when they see the lines going apart and they think, oh my God, I'm there, quite often it's too late for them to make the decisions needed to jump lines. Okay. So you will see it's far easier to jump lines now. Okay. It's easier to jump lines sooner. Okay. So there are a few outcomes you can make from here. Okay. You can decide to do the first part, which is to jump lines, of course. So if you're in drift at the moment, you can jump lines now and move up to an okay or an ideal outcome. Okay. So the decision is, do I jump lines? Okay. And move up to the decision, to the ideal outcome, because it's easier to jump lines today. Okay. Second thing is that you can then, if you do that, if you jump lines, you can then ride the curve. Because once you've jumped lines, you can ride the success curve for the next 20 years. Okay. That's called the compound effect. All right. But there is a third option you can do. And that is to accelerate. You can accelerate your progress to an ideal outcome by jumping lines, learning to ride the curve, but at the same time, jumping right up to an ideal outcome by acquiring knowledge as well. And that, of course, comes through mentorship. And that's how I did it. And that's how everyone accelerates their success. It's the only cheat code to success. Okay. The question is, how long are you going to wait until you jump lines? That's the question you've got to ask yourself. So if you're ready to jump lines now, then I'd really encourage you to jump on that first coaching call with Melissa so she can explain to you how to jump lines, how to ride the curve, and most importantly, how to accelerate your success so you can get the ideal outcome you want and you don't fall into drift and crisis. All right, so enjoy the calls and I look forward to hearing the outcome. Talk to you soon.